morning, everyone. Thanks so much for coming to our session, How a Federal Credit Union Streamlined Service Management Across Teams. I'm really pleased to introduce Jennifer Leitch from Michigan State University Federal Credit Union and Nick Sommerfeld from ISOS Technology.
Thank you. Yes, welcome. So like she said, we'll be talking about how a federal credit union streamlined service management across teams. So we'll start with some introductions. My name's Nick Sommerfeld. I'm a professional services consultant here at ISOS Technology.
And I'm Jennifer Leitch. I am an application engineer for Michigan State University Federal Credit Union.
All right, and so I'm here with ISOS. We are an Atlassian Platinum and Enterprise Solution Partner. We've been named Partner of the Year in ITSM and Enterprise categories. Shameless marketing plug, sorry. Our passion is helping companies and their Atlassian tools more effectively and efficiently to get the most out of their technology investment.
And I am from MSUFCU, is what we call ourselves in short, because Michigan State University Federal Credit Union is a little bit long to go on. We've been around since 1937, and at this point we have, I think we're now nearing into 340,000 members across the world. We have 20 branches in the state of Michigan. One of our big things is we're guided very strongly by our core values. We do a lot of community service, a lot of volunteer work. We really strive to help our employees and our members improve our community and ourselves and achieve financial security and ultimately our goals and dreams.
Great. Well, thank you for being here. I know coming to Vegas was a tough choice. So let's talk about why ISOS and MSUFCU started working together. So you first implemented an on-prem server deployment of Jira and Confluence,
Yes.
right? And over time, not uncommonly, came a little untenable, a little unruly. Things like lack of organization or inconsistencies in configuration made administering Jira and Confluence more difficult, right? So the MSUFCU admin team realized they needed a more strategic and structured approach to their deployment.
Yes, that's correct. I am one of the two administrators for our Jira and Confluence instance. And for me, I have some previous experience from a different company with about 7 years of experience in administrating our Atlassian stack, and then now coming on 4 years with the credit union on doing the administration. So for me, I've been in the system for a while. I've seen things start small and grow and grow, and when we started looking into wanting to implement JSM, the Jira Service Management, we found that we had to take a step back and actually review how we had our instances set up. I'm not sure how many folks here are, do the administration within their Jira instance, but probably recall some of the fun that we get to when we start getting too many statuses and we start getting too many workflows, and we start having workflows that are either all-to-all or you get stuck in a workflow line and the only way that you can actually move back is to move forward through the entire workflow. We had quite a few of those, and for us it was really, we realized we had to do some cleanup. We had to figure out what statuses we needed to keep. We needed to figure out what workflows and how we wanted our workflows to move through and how we would want to allow folks to work on those. We still also had some issues with like different screens. I think at one point we had something like 80 different screens that all covered the same thing. And trying to manage those, especially when somebody was like, well, we want to add a new field. How hard is it to add a new field to Jira? And it's like, it's pretty hard right now. So we started looking through those.
Yeah, so we looked at the workflows. We were originally brought in to take a look and build out a service management project for the team, right?
Yes.
Quickly realized as part of what we like to come in and do is not just do what we were brought in to do, but strategically look at the instance, make recommendations. If the project that we were brought on to do needs to shift, then it's going to shift. So as an example, workflows, right?
Right.
There are a whole lot of different ways you can build workflows. There are extreme workflows, and I'm sure everyone has seen these different types, not specifically from their instance,
No.
but just as an example, right? A whole bunch of all transitions or super, super linear workflows that do not work for most teams, going from implementation to live, why, or to refinement in these examples. So if you get super linear, you can't go backwards. If you click the wrong button, you're there and you're stuck. So, along with, like you mentioned, statuses as well. Just as an example, canceled versus canceled. I prefer 2 L's. I don't know why. Don't know what that means.
We do one.
Or for review, right? In review, under review, needs review, executive review, all the reviews. They're there in a lot of instances. There's a lot of redundancies. And when you're trying to pull that into data or pull that data out, it becomes very difficult.
Yes, it absolutely does. One of the things that was really nice when we did make the decision that we wanted to do a little bit of cleanup is, rather than me trying to spend my time doing my normal day-to-day work and then going through our entire, this large, I think we had almost 200,000 issues and 250 users instance of Jira, and try to figure out, like, how do I clean up and what statuses and what workflows and what screens and whatnot. I handed that all over to ISOS and let them do a review of everything, and they generated a nice spreadsheet that had all of our things set up that we could actually easily look at and see, yes, okay, now we can really see all of our statuses. Let's figure out what we want to do.
Right, so the strategic alignment part of this, right? Again, we're brought in to do a Jira Service Management build. Got in, looked around, did an audit, realized, okay, that's like the third thing we need to do. First, we need to clean it up. Clean up Jira, clean up Confluence, do a complete audit of workflow statuses, screens, custom fields, streamline everything, because step 2 was actually a migration to the cloud.
Yes.
So it made the migration exponentially easier to do that audit and clean up front, and then get to the service management part.
Right. Yes, that was once we finished doing our cleanup work. It took us a couple weeks to do that, and we actually had planned on launching to cloud, and it was like a 4-month process or so is what we had mapped out. But because we did this cleanup work, we were actually able to do that almost 3 months early. We just migrated to cloud in January, and it frankly went much smoother than I would have ever expected. And part of that is because we did do this cleanup and audit and review first, and then migrated to cloud.
So less time for admins to do
Yes.
research on changes that are requested, right?
Yes.
So we identified obsolete and redundant projects. So not just workflows, not just configurations, but projects in general, right? All of it. Establishing consistent nomenclature, and a lot of manual processes were able to be turned into automation rules, as an example, right? So a lot of streamlining, a lot of organizing. And so step 2, again, the benefit of doing this cleanup was the migration. So you were looking to take advantage of cloud,
Yes.
not only for the Jira Service Management build, but for everything that comes with cloud, right? Do you want to speak
Right.
about that?
Yes, we wanted to move to cloud. We knew that we were going to be saving some money on a lot of the plugins and add-ons that we had already that were inherent in cloud. The upcoming, no longer supporting the server version was a big part. And then we knew that we wanted to have less work on us as administrators on managing our instances. For me, I'm not just the Jira administrator for the credit union, but my role also supports about 250 other applications that help keep the credit union going. So it's really important while I work on Jira, I can't just focus on that. I need to have a lot more time to work on everything else that we have going on, which is, we're looking into more things with the stack and everything else to get that going. But moving to the cloud helps take a lot of that work off of me on taking care of things. We moved from using Crowd to using the Atlassian admin access. That's been a lot easier on me for managing, and we don't have to have as much maintenance. If we want to do an spin up a sandbox, it's really easy versus the time it would take us to have to shut things down and do a database copy and tell everybody they can't get into Jira for the weekend or something and whatnot. So all of these things, we knew we needed to move to cloud. We wanted to get it done sooner. And while we were planning on doing the Jira Service Management upgrade and then move to cloud, we realized with ISOs that we actually need to move to cloud first and then work on the Jira Service Management.
Yeah, I mean, faster software, faster releases, right? No downtime. Easier for you guys to manage from an admin perspective for access and things like that, like you mentioned. So again, because we did all the cleanup ahead of time, a very, very smooth migration, one of the smoothest migrations we've done. I think over 300 users.
250 users, I think 200 and some thousand issues.
Something issues, yeah. And also, this takes into account all the applications that are in there, right? So you use some test-based management applications. And so we're able to move that over. We're actually also able to get you off of some applications that provided functionality that cloud now provides natively, right? So a lot of your automation or scripting that you had to build out manually or in other applications are now just automation for Jira rules.
Yeah, we had a lot of folks that had the scheduler used for things and had kind of mocked up different things that sometimes weren't quite as easy to figure out what they wanted to do, and they weren't able to figure out exactly what they wanted to do. And at one point I had one group that had, I think, over 700 scheduler tasks that they wanted to have. But when we moved to cloud, I helped them learn how to use automation for Jira, and they were able to cut that down drastically because instead of making one scheduler task for every, it's the beginning of the month, we have to check this and this and this and this, and they'd make one for each single thing over and over and over and over, and then schedule everything at the same time. So now they can use automation for Jira. They can make, it's the beginning of the month, we're going to make these tasks and go forth. So that cut that down. It's a lot easier. We were able to get better automation with automation for Jira, and that was a big one that we had, that we went from having over 1,000 total scheduler, which was most of them were the one person, to quite fewer but stronger automations in Jira.
Great, yeah, and so a lot of the auditing, the cleanup, the migration led to a lot of conversations internally, right? So it's not just you making the decisions for everyone involved. We were involved in some of those decisions, right? Best practice guidance, but you also had an interesting way that you brought in the organization to give feedback into that.
So for the credit union, it wasn't just IT department that used Jira. We also were using Jira with our facilities group and our legal department and our BI group. So and then we have, within IT, we have the software development group is more agile and follows, the different ceremonies, where my team kind of is more the drink from the fire hose team of getting work in, which is constant. And we wanted to make sure that when we're making changes to our instance, we were evaluating what we're doing, and not just when somebody asks for a change or I want this. So am I cutting out?
You're good. Just keep, yeah.
Okay. We wanted to make sure that if I'm asking for something, is this something that might be useful for everybody else? So what we did is we met weekly, and then every other week, one representative from each department and somebody from the facilities group and somebody from the legal group, and maybe a couple managers, but mainly it was the folks that were working in the system all the time. And we'd meet with this community of practice and discuss the changes or the findings that we had with ISOs on that big spreadsheet, and how do we want to standardize our names and what makes sense. And it's not like we're going to say everybody has to follow the exact same model, but we would find out from software development that they're using things in a way that might be kind of neat and useful for even the legal department as they evaluate things. Or our legal department is doing reviews on incoming contracts, but so does our security group when they're doing their security reviews. So how can we talk together each week about what we have going on and what's upcoming and make decisions together on improving our instance? And that helped cut back a lot of our workflow counts, and that cut back a lot of the multitude of statuses, because we all were discussing those together and making decisions together on those.
Right, and one of those things that's helpful to understand is, all right, there are no bad questions, right? Maybe no bad ideas, but there are bad requests. We try to get everyone on the same page of what problem are you trying to solve, as opposed to what do you want, right?
Right.
When you just build or create or config to what someone wants, you get into the world where you have 17 in review statuses or things like that, right? So, great. So we finally made it to the Jira Service Management portion of the project, which is, again, why we were originally here. So 4 large teams, right? Dozens of request types, hundreds of non-licensed Jira users, so customers, for 20 branches across the state, all supported by one dev IT team, right?
Yes.
Right. But it came from all the business teams, all the branches, submitting tickets to that dev team to support back office officers and executives, right? So the support team uses Jira software to manage work through the Kanban boards. Users have a very friendly portal with the Jira Service Management to make their requests. How are they doing submitting requests before the portal was available to them? Email?
Everything's email.
Yeah. So we got everyone out of shared email boxes, out of distro lists, out of messaging, right? You can't track that stuff. You can't assign something effectively out of a distro list or just a shared email box. So now you have tracking of who's doing what work, where the work's coming from, what work's still in progress, right? Normal Jira management of issues. So how have you seen those benefits so far?
So we're still in this progress right now. We're still working on making sure that folks are using, trying to drive more towards the portals and using the portal. We've not got everything implemented the way we want it quite yet, but we're starting to work on better reporting. We're working on my friend here, Chris, is our person that works on our reporting on our stats, so I'm pointing him out right now. And but we're in a process right now where we're able to get better data out. We're able to start tracking like who's sending in tickets and what groups are we focusing on. We're working on building out value streams and knowing, you know, where requests for changes are coming through and what departments are we working on, and are those matching up with the values that we want to promote for the credit union. Again, we're not quite there. I was actually working on a big change to improve our incoming idea management process using JSM, and hopefully being able to do better reporting on those type of things. We want, to have more visibility for people to see that, hey, I've asked for this, where are we at in the process? Or for me, like if I send something in, does my manager or my VP know what I'm asking for, and what are they aware of what is being requested within their department, so that they have an idea of what they should support and what they should stand behind when they make, when they're meeting for the partnership meetings. So a lot of those pieces are still moving right now, but they're also coming into place and building up a much more, cohesive and transparent way of showing what kind of work we're doing. My team's working more on getting out of the fire hose method of getting work and more scheduling and planning work right now, and a lot of that is using leveraging the Jira Service Management.
Yeah, and a lot of this is iterative, right?
Yes.
So Jira Service Management is launched in your organization, right? It's being used. I'm sure there's feedback coming in, and like you mentioned, you have a number of other tools that you support, not just Jira.
Yes.
So, I guess what we're in phase 4 of this project is continuing support for you guys from a managed services perspective,
Absolutely.
right?
And the managed services work that we started with has been immediately beneficial for me because we have already have this relationship with ISOs. I feel that as somebody with experience with our instance, and then them being within it and doing that audit work, they understand our work and they understand what we are looking to do and how we do our work. So instead of everything having to filter through me and I'm having to do all the work, and then, or I have to, like, hey, we're gonna have managed services, but how much of it is gonna be me explaining what to do versus me just doing the job? I don't like that. But it's turned into, I can just say, this is something, I kind of know what I want done with it, but I don't have the time right now. I can just ask our managed service person to take a look at it and know that he understands where I'm thinking already from that. And that saved us a lot of time. He's been helping with some other cleanup work that we went through without having to do before the migration. He's been able to do some research things where I know I've seen this one time on the community board, like how to fix this problem, but I don't want to go through and try to do all the searching for it. And I'll be like, hey, Jason, can you go find out what this is, or can we do this even? And he does that. And it's like having another person that's solely dedicated to our Atlassian products that can help me out quite a bit, and I don't have to manage what they're doing or double check that work because they've already been working with us for over a year and know how we do our job here.
Right, and it's part of that strategic mindset, right? And whether it's ISOs or another partner, obviously I'm here, so it's going to be shameless plug after shameless plug, but it is, I will say no, or why, or no. So, it's a partnership. It's not just taking these requests and doing them. It's determining the best path forward through best practices and experience. So, hopefully that continues to work out for you moving forward. But it's also, through 4 phases, we now know your instance probably as well, hopefully not better, but maybe as well as you, or maybe better in some cases, because you are spread across many different technologies. So it was a process. It was definitely a journey, right? You brought us in to do specific Jira Service Management build. We paused, we rethought, we actually pushed that into 3 phases. A full audit, a full cleanup, a migration to cloud, and then a JSM build, a Jira Service Management build.
And then managed services.
And then managed services, absolutely. So, again, this seems like the finish line, but there is more work to be done. The auditing, the cleanup, you can have tight regulations, but it still needs to be done fairly regularly.
Right.
Just because you did it once prior to the migration, it's not to say it doesn't need to be done every quarter, every 6 months, every year, whatever cadence you can come up with, it needs to be looked at regularly.
Yes. And I know for me, it's been really nice working with ISOs on this project. It started off with just one simple request on, let's find somebody that can help us get JSM going. And now it's completely evolved, and now we already, we have this longer term commitment in place. And I think that, we've had a lot of fun with it. I know that the folks we've worked with have been a lot of fun to work with.
We brought you to Vegas.
I know you brought me to Vegas, but you made me speak in front of a lot of people, and I've never done this before. So, yay. I think one of the greatest things about working with you is that your communication's a lot quicker, I get turnaround, I can get answers fast, I don't have to wait for a day or two for things, and that's been really nice. I've learned a lot working with you guys. That's been really good because I've learned things that I wouldn't have figured out how to do before, or it would have taken me a long time. So I've really appreciated
Good, good. You can't see us just Googling in the background,
right?
Okay, perfect.
Which is what I do too.
Perfect. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to have you here and working with you. So for those of you who found this session interesting, want some more information, we do have a downloadable case study and a white paper on transitioning from ITSM to ESM. Are there any, I'll put that up. Are there any questions about anything we talked about or anything specific around ITSM, ESM, migration, audit, cleanup, or anything?
We've got a microphone here.
I wondered if you had any specific requirements around like the data privacy and stuff, being a bank or being a credit union, and how you dealt with that, like moving into the cloud if you had.
Yes.
So let me just rephrase it. So any issues moving to the cloud relative to data residency issues like PI and personal information
Privacy,
or anything
yes.
to do with a financial institution? Okay.
We did. We actually, pre-pandemic, we were very much not about anything in the cloud. And not just Jira, but anything. There were no cloud applications whatsoever. But we found with our security team that when the pandemic happened, and I want to say, what did we have, like 700 employees went remote within 3 days. Is that about right, Chris? Yep. And yes. Yeah. So that kind of blew a lot of our having to keep everything within the building and everything, very secure, very locked down, to maybe it's time for us to look into some of the cloud and the security and what is available, and doing a lot of research into how not just credit unions, but financial industries, and what's available for keeping personal information safe in the cloud. And we did do, a very thorough review of the Atlassian products. I believe that we're keeping all of our data US based, and we have a pretty robust security review for cloud applications for us. We're not like, let's put everything in the cloud. But we're moving a lot of our applications, we're moving to cloud with those because of the changes with the whole environment on cloud. But before, 3 years ago, never would have even considered it.
And it's people policy too, right?
Yes.
It's making sure they're not putting things in places they shouldn't. But
right.
to your question, to your point about that, and around the lockdown and COVID and everyone going remote, we've seen numerous companies reassess where cloud used to be a 4-letter word.
Yes.
Maybe they're loosening their protocols around it, or they're actually digging into it as opposed to just saying, no, it's cloud, get away. Strides Atlassian's made in how the data lives. We've seen many companies who did not want to touch cloud move to cloud recently.
Yeah. Very much. And I'm not on the security team, so I'm not quite sure what they do, but I do know that they spend a lot of time reviewing everything before giving the go-ahead to move. And if they trust it, then I do too, considering my accounts are also here with the credit union.
Any other questions?
Can you hear me? I'm just gonna. Got one right there.
Okay. First question is, did you guys consider a TAM, or what was the reason you went with iOS rather than like a TAM option?
So just make sure. So what made you choose ISOs,
Oh,
right?
what
And
made you choose ISOs?
over a TAM directly, did you reach out directly to Atlassian? How did you find ISOs?
So when the credit union started with Jira, we engaged a different vendor, and I want to say it was like a bronze level vendor or something, and we didn't quite get the experience that we wanted with that. And when we had some just weren't getting where we wanted. When we decided to engage a vendor for the JSM and migration, we knew we wanted to go with a platinum vendor, and we talked with a few other companies and credit unions that we knew that used Jira, that used a vendor, and actually did interviews with other companies and then interviewed different vendors, and that's kind of how we went around until we came up with choosing ISOs. I wasn't involved as much with those discussions, so I don't have as many details as I would like, but I just know that we did quite an extensive interview process that probably took almost 6 months. And a big part of that was talking not just to the vendors, but to the folks that use the vendors instead.
Did you go to Atlassian to find list of partners, or?
I think that's what they did, is they just went through the platinum partner list, and then,
Yep.
Working, a lot of the credit unions do work together because we're not a bank, we're not competing against each other. So a lot of times when we're working on different systems that are kind of shared with other credit unions, or other credit unions are using that, we'll reach out and they'd be like, hey, like, what are you doing with this? Or who did you work with? Or how are you working on this? To see, if they're having a struggle with things, we might have already fixed that, or if we're having a struggle with one of our applications or our core or something, then maybe another credit union has already figured that out. And we do a lot of sharing of the information that way.
Great. Any other questions? Sure.
Thank you. I'm also working in a bank in Canada, so I have a couple of questions for you. How many projects do you handle?
Oh.
So, just to make sure it all picks up, how many projects are actually in your instance? I'm actually
So we only have, I want to say, about 15 projects within our instance right now.
And you only have one instance?
Yes. Well, we have the main Jira instance, and then we have one sandbox.
Okay, so
Yes.
non-prod and a prod? Okay.
Yes.
How many users?
I want to say we're around 250 right now. And then what I actually do have is we have 250 active licensed users in our Jira and Confluence, and then, but we have about probably rolling up to 1,000 employees and vendors that work within the portal or send in requests that we work with.
And did you open your instance to the external users? Do you have a VPC?
No, we don't have external users on that one yet.
Okay. Sorry, I have precise questions. Okay. Do you use apps?
We have a variety of different apps that we've cut down quite a few since we moved to cloud, because a lot of the ones that we were using are already inherent, or we're just looking to save the money from that.
Okay. And do you have any ITSM services into your Jira Service Management? Or it's just a portal?
What was that?
So there is, are there true ITSM practices in the
Let's say
instance?
changes to your prod. Do you have some process to ask for changes into your prod system?
Yes, we do a change request process, and we're actually in the middle of updating that right now so that we can gather more and more information so that we can do more reporting on that. But we did put our change management process in Jira as well.
Okay, great. And you didn't find any security issues into your Jira? Let's say somebody that puts a credit card into a field?
We try to monitor for that, and for us, what we're looking for are actual account numbers within the thing, within any of the tickets. We use scrambled accounts so that we don't have those. And I'm thinking that our security team sometimes does some checks to see if we have any issues with putting actual account numbers in. I've seen a couple questions come up for that, so that try to make sure that those are removed.
If there are like strings of numbers that you can
Right.
key in on. Yeah,
Okay, thank you for your transparency.
sure. And part of it is making sure that, you know, you don't create a custom field called account number.
Right,
Right?
no.
Because a lot of it is just controlling the actions of the users in the system. They could put it wherever they want. It doesn't have to be
Right.
a specific field, right? So you do have to do your due diligence, whether it's, you know, a scripting solution to audit tickets every so often to make sure there are no strings of numbers that equal an account number, right?
And one of the things we actually do is we have a group, a permission group for Jira for our audit team where they are granted read-only access to every project, not just the IT projects, but including the legal and the BI or the facilities projects, because they have a duty to make sure that all areas, not just IT, because it's not just an IT tool, are following our best practices.
Yeah, and it's nice that, you know, only a couple hundred users in Jira, right? But a ton of non-licensed customers.
Yes.
So bringing Jira Service Management on board allowed you to open up the Jira world,
Right.
for lack of a better phrase, to non-Jira users, right? Any other questions?
Yep, she's
That was
back there
fast.
right now.
Yeah, just two questions. One is, did you consider any other vendors when you began? I know you were already on Jira, so maybe you didn't, but I was just curious. As you thought about the cloud migration, did you guys evaluate anyone else, or not really?
So evaluating vendors from a tooling standpoint or from a partnering standpoint?
I was just asking kind of everything.
Or both? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for us, when we had decided on ISOs and we were mainly looking at the Jira Service Management, and we had already built that relationship after doing those interviews and discussions with other credit unions and other companies. So we'd settled on ISOs, even though when we decided, and we're doing Jira Service Management, no, we're going to do a cleanup and migrate to cloud instead. Because they already had a pretty strong background in that, we didn't feel that we needed to reevaluate our vendor for that. And then now that we have the managed services going on as well, it was kind of because we already had the relationship, we just stayed with it.
Okay. And then just my second question, and actually this is a question like I would love to ask everybody in the room, but in the the environment and the Russia-Ukraine situation and the economy and all that, is that affecting any of your deployment schedules and how things are going to pan out for you guys this year?
You want to repeat that? So everyone hears?
So just to make sure, so what's going on, Russia, Ukraine, all of that, is that impacting anything from their deployment standpoint or potentially even the way that we're working with other clients as well, right? Okay, do you want to go first?
Yeah, for us, there have been changes with the banking and credit union industry with what's been going on in Ukraine and Russia. So that's something that we monitor and have to make changes to our system pretty quickly. But overall, for us, what's happened in the last 2 years has resulted in a huge increase in our holdings and what our members are doing with us. We're actually moving towards a new level where we're going to be under additional requirements from the NCUA, so we're working on a lot of that right now. So we're doing better than we expected, but we're launching forward so fast that we're like a little terrified on what's coming up ahead, just because we seem to not be negatively impacted with what's been going on with the economy, and instead it's actually been a positive impact for the credit union and what we provide for our members.
So the last 2 years of craziness,
You
you guys have pivoted well.
Yeah,
or can pivot well now because
we were expecting losses. We actually, one of the things that we chose to do when the pandemic started and so many people were out of work is we had a huge call campaign where we called most of our members and offered to waive or skip 3 months of payments for any of their loans that they had with us. And we would add that on, of course, to the end of the loan, but there's no no penalty, no fee, or very small fee. But if you were struggling, we didn't want to make it struggle more. So you lost your job, fine, 3 months, no problem, no questions asked. Or we had some, we offered like very low or 0% interest loans to people that were out of work suddenly with no credit checks. And we figured we were going to lose so much because we have no income, our drastic drop of income from loan payments. But for us, it was more important that we take care of our members. And we got ready to do that. We announced that we were not going to be able to do any promotions or things like that. We're going to try to hold tight and just, stay low. What ended up happening was a lot of people cashed out the equity of their homes and put them right into savings with us. So our savings accounts skyrocketed, which meant that our holdings skyrocketed. And we're like, we weren't expecting this, and we have to maintain a balance of loans and income. So when we started getting more and more and more assets and holding because more and more people, and like not as many people took us up on the offer to skip their payments. They like, nope, we're going to keep going forward. And then a lot of folks that found out how much we were trying to help our members decided that they were going to come to the credit union and close their accounts with other banks. And it's been a little terrifying for us because we've always tried to be, pretty small and not too big, and really focused on the individual and the community, and we're just growing really fast. So it's been great. But
yeah. And so from our perspective, and I know we're about at time, so I'll dig into it quickly here.
Sorry.
Over the last 2 years, a lot of clients have been looking to consolidate their tooling or find more effective tooling with the remote lifestyle in place. So there is not a shortage of people looking for help with Atlassian products from that perspective. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the more recent things with Russia and Ukraine, our presence is predominantly here, but we do see when we're interacting with app vendors or app providers, or dealing in some cases directly with Atlassian around migrations or move tickets or where their devs are present, there can be. So it's just a conversation with a client as an example of the realities of working with, those situations. Mm-hmm. But not majorly impacted, not anything that's insurmountable. So thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you very much.